Let's start off by reviewing what the data gateway is. We use the data gateway to connect to on-prem data such as Dynamics GP and connect that data to cloud apps such as PowerApps and Flow. Data gateway is typically installed on a SQL server, however, it cannot be a domain controller. What are PowerApps? PowerApps are a suite of app services, connectors, and data platform that provides a rapid application development environment to build custom apps for your business needs. You can quickly build business apps that connect to business data stored in various online and on-premise data sources. Apps built using PowerApps provide rich business logic and workflow capabilities to transform your manual business processes to digital automated processes. PowerApps can be run on your browser or on a mobile device. Basically, you can build custom business apps without writing any code. Let's jump into a basic demonstration. So let's jump into a very basic demo. I'm going to be creating a Power App that has Excel as its backend, and the Excel workbook will be saved into OneDrive. So I have OneDrive open right now, and I'm just going to create a new file, and it'll be an Excel workbook document, which I've already done. Here's the workbook. I just added some basic columns to this workbook: customer ID, customer name, customer type, and a balance amount. So this Power App will allow us to add new customers and also update the balances of those customers. So once I have the Excel workbook created, I will also want to save this data as a table. So you're just highlighting the cells and then inserting a table is typically what you'd want to do. So I've already done that already. So now I'm going to jump over to Power Apps and start building the app. So it's as simple as going into Power Apps. So let me just minimize this for a second. We'll jump into Power Apps, which I've already have open here. So we log into PowerApps.com and we select the appropriate environment, and we're just going to select something pretty basic, which is we're going to build an app from data. So to do that, we go to the create option here on the left hand side, and then we're going to select start from data, and we're going to hit create, and it's going to prompt us for connection. So in our particular case, we're going to select a phone layout, and we're going to select our data is going to be stored in OneDrive for Business, but this could be any sort of the connectors that are available with Flow or Power Apps. So we'll select phone layout, OneDrive for Business, and then I need to select where the file is actually stored in OneDrive for Business. So Profit Webinar is the folder, and I have my customer balances one webinar file located there. Now, previous I indicated your data need to be stored in a table. Obviously that's the case. It's going to only look for tables. So I'm going to select the table name I created and hit connect. What this is going to do is it's going to go out and build a basic Power App just from the data I have in my Excel workbook. So it's going to create, it's going to bring up the studio, which is what this is, to allow me to edit my app. But at this point, it's created 3 different screens for me. It's created a normal browse screen, a detail screen, and an edit screen, are the 3 screens. So here's my normal screen. If I go to detail screen, it's showing a bunch of detail, and then the edit screen is something very similar. As you can see, it's created the customer ID, the customer name, the type. Customer balance is not on here. We don't want type, we actually want customer balance. So to do that, I'm going to edit this particular screen. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the title up here. So to do that, I'm just basically going to select that particular label and just put in a new title. So we're going to call this customer balances. See, it's pretty straightforward. The next thing I'm going to do is I want the third field to be the balance amount. So I'm going to select the particular browser gallery, which is what I've selected here. And I'm going to go to properties and fields and select edit. And as you can see, the body says customer type. I can just hit the drop down. It's going to show me all the fields that are available in my spreadsheet. That's the balance field. Title, it's customer ID, customer name. I actually want to flip these around. So I'm going to change this to be customer name and this to be customer ID. As you can see, as I'm making changes, it's being reflected on the form in front of me. So pretty straightforward. The other thing I can do is pretty up the numbers here. So if I select that particular field, the balance field, we can go to the advanced tab. I can scroll down to the text property here. And we're just going to put $ space, $ ampersand. As you can see, it's put a $ in front of those values. I can even format this to be a number. I'm just going to leave it as is for right now. Get the idea. So at this point, we've created our basic first window. I should also mention you can zoom in on the screens a little bit just by moving this slider around. So just to make it easier for you guys to see. Make that, obviously gives you a little less real estate to work with. If I go to this next screen here, which is our detail screen, I also have the balance amount, customer ID, customer name, and type. I'll just leave that as is. And the edit screen, once again, we'll leave that as is. So now when I'm happy with the app, I can go File, save it, give it a name. So save as, give it a name here. It's going to save it up to Power Platform environment. I'm just going to minimize that. We're just going to actually play the app and show you how it works. So if I say preview this app and click on this button or F5, let me redo that again. Let me just start off from the main screen, and we're going to hit play. So basic, I can search. I can do a search for, let's say, blue. It's going to do a search. I'm going to take off that search. So very similar to how mobile apps or native apps work today on a mobile device. I can actually drill into one of these records. So if I select a alarm company, I can drill into it, and as you can see the data. If I want to edit a particular record, I can click this edit button, and I can change the balance to, let's say, 7,000, and I can hit the submit button. What this is doing is going back out to our Excel file and updating the values. I actually have that file open right now, so it's locked. So I'm actually going to go and close that particular file, just so we can actually write to it, which is this record here. We'll just close that. So I should be able to submit this. 7,000, which I've submitted it, so that's great. And if we were to jump, I can also add a new record, and I can do that by just clicking on this plus button. We'll set this to be $7,000. We'll give it a customer ID of 00001 and a customer name webinar. And we'll set this to type 1. And I'm going to submit this. So as you can see, it's added it to the list, which is what we wanted. Now if I jump back to the Excel spreadsheet in the background, which I'll do here, open that file back up, you will see that it's added the webinar customer 001, our type, and our balance amount's been added. It also, PowerApps also adds this extra column to your table, so it basically you can correlate a record back to the record within the PowerApps. So don't be alarmed if you see that. That's how it's supposed to function. So let's jump into another demonstration on connecting to Dynamics GP data and updating that data back into Dynamics GP from a Power App. So I'm just going to go back to our Power Apps environment, and we're going to so same thing we did before, which was create basically a new app. So I'll just close this one. We're not going to save that at all. So I'm going to go back to create, and we're going to select start from data. We could also build from a blank canvas, and we can also build model-driven apps, but we're not going to be covering that today. So we'll say start from data. I'm going to hit create. And using the data gateway, obviously there's a SQL server on our on-prem server. So we're going to select SQL server as our connection here. We're going to select phone layout. And it's going to want me to define a connection back to our data gateway. So I'm just going to show you what that looks like. I've already created one here, but I'll just show you what that looks like. So we'll select new, and then I'm going to select SQL server. And this is where it's going to prompt me, do you want to connect to on-prem data gateway, which is what we want. We're going to specify our server name. So ppg demo serve. Our database name, so this is our Dynamics GP company database, so TWO, PA in this case. Authentication method, we're going to select basic, and I'm just going to put SA password in here. And then the data gateway we're going to connect to is ppg demo serve, and we would hit create. Like I indicated, I've already done that. So I'm just going to hit cancel to that. And we'll go back to our previous screen, select data, create. Just going to close that window. I'm going to select SQL Server, and I'm going to select my connection. And then it's going to prompt me what table or view do I want to select. In this case, the app we're going to be building is going to be updating credit amounts inside of the customer maintenance window, or the RM00101 table in Dynamics GP. So we're going to select RM00101 table. That's the field that has our credit amount. We're going to hit connect. It's going to go out and do the same thing as before. It's going to take all the fields in the RM001 and sort of build what it thinks is the default app we want. We're then going to modify that app shortly and make it to what we want versus what the system has created for us. So I have the basic app created. I'm just going to make this zoom in a little bit so everyone can see this. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the header of the app. So I'm just going to rename this just like we did with our other app. So we'll just name it customers, and we're going to select that particular gallery. And we're going to change the fields that are in the gallery. So I don't want address. I want this to be the title to be the customer name. So as you can see, all the fields got returned here, but we're going to set that to customer name. We're going to set the subtitle to be customer number, and we're going to set the body to be our credit amount field, or credit limit amount, sorry. So we've done that. As you can see, it's created our basic. Now we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to select our field that we want here, which will be body 1 field. And we want the format of this field to be changed, so we're just going to select advanced, multiple ways of doing this. And we'll select the field, text field. We'll put $, oops, double quotes, $, space, ampersand, and then we'll format this field to be, so this will be text, and we'll give it a format amount, and this has to be enclosed with double quotes. Close that off. So as you can see, each one of these records is pulling from GP, and it's giving me the information I want, so that's perfect. I can now go to the next step, which is I think this sort of screen is okay to what we want. We're going to go to the detail window. Detail window has a bunch of more information. It doesn't really matter the fields that are on here. I just want to show you how easy is it to remove and add fields. So we're just going to select that particular window, and I'm going to go to advanced. I'm going to select edit field. Here's a list of all the fields that are on the screen. So I'm going to leave customer number, address 123. I'm going to get rid of, so it's just left clicking and removing that field. And it's just removing it from the form, not from your data set. So balance type we also don't want to see. And I don't need to see this information here. It's obviously taking the first X number of fields. Now to add a new field, I'm just going to click add. And we're going to add the credit amount, credit limit amount field. So I'm just going to click that and hit add. And as you can see, it added it to the bottom, and it's on the form now. So I can go ahead and change the titles and change the field values and make it look a lot nicer, but I'm not going to do that at the moment. I'm now going to jump over to the edit screen. Once again, we have a bunch of extra fields we don't need. So I'm just going to do the same thing we did last time, which is we're going to select a field here, go to advanced, edit our fields. So I'm just going to remove a bunch of fields. We're just going to, on this particular form, all we're going to keep is basically the customer number and the credit amount. Those are the only two fields that are required to update within GP. So we're just going to add the credit amount back on here, or credit limit amount. So I have the customer number and the credit limit amount. One of the major issues is that we are not able to directly update a record on a SQL table that has a trigger on it. So to get around that, what we're going to do is create a flow in Microsoft Flow, which calls a store procedure, which will then update the record in the SQL table. So let me just jump over to SQL Management Studio so I can show you what that particular store procedure that I created looks like. So I'm basically just passing in the customer number and the credit limit amount as parameters within the store procedure. And then we're just doing a simple update RM001, setting that to be our one parameter where the customer number equals our other parameter, wrapping that around a begin and commit transaction. Inside of Flow, so let me just jump to Flow for a minute and I can show you what our flow that we created looks like. So that's pretty straightforward in that we create a new flow. If I go to the home page and we'll just type PowerApps. So here's some templates that exist. So here's the one that we want, which is execute store procedure on a PowerApps button click. So if I select that, it's going to go out and it's going to say what connection do I want to use. I've already have this connection called TWPG SQL. So then I hit continue. I don't need to do anything here. I just need to define what the store procedure name was, which was USP something in our table. So it's loading all the store procedures that exist in my database. As you can see, it's found our store procedure. And then next step is to provide our two parameters for a store procedure. And in this case, we're just going to say ask PowerApps and select each one of those. And that's all we really need to do. And we would just save this flow and we can use this within our PowerApp. So let me just jump back to our PowerApp. So on the edit screen, we want to add a button at this point. So we're just going to insert a new button. And we're going to change the text on that button. To submit. The other thing I want to do is get rid of this particular button here. So we'll just delete that. We don't need that on submit. So now when I click this, I want an action to happen. So I'm just going to select action, and this is where I specify a flow action on this button. And it's going to look to see what store procedures we've created. And we've got this one called execute store procedure. So we're just going to select that. So it's this PowerApps button click run. Now this wants parameters, so we need to specify the parameters we're going to use. And in our particular case, we have on the edit screen, we have the data card key 9 value and data card credit amount, which is the data card 18 value in this particular case. So we just need to supply those. So the format of that would be data card value 9 dot text. As we can see, it's highlighted that particular value green, and it's actually highlighted that particular field on our form green as well, which is great. And supplier data card value 18. So the purple is the customer number, and then green is the credit limit amount. Just close off that. The other thing I can do is add extra commands into this particular submit button when it's clicked. So the way I do that is just by doing this. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want to once I've clicked the submit button, I want to navigate back to screen 1. So just navigate screen 1. But before I actually do that, I'm going to add we're going to do a refresh of the data. So what that's going to do is it's going to pass in these parameters into the flow, run the flow, and then it's going to refresh our data so it pulls back into our data set. So refresh RM00101, close that off, and then we're going to add another command. Oh, I should have had a close bracket there. Another command, which is the navigate command we're doing before. And we want to go back to browse screen 1. I probably should have given these a better name, just easier to maintain the application after, but you get the idea. So once I've done that, you just go off of there. Now we can run the app and actually see this in action. So to do that, I'm just going to scroll up here, go back to my main screen, and we're going to hit play. I'm actually going to change this to be just to make it a little easier. We're just going to change this to cust name, and I'm just going to get rid of all of these fields in my sort, just so I can. So Aaron Fitz is at the top here. Oops, I made a mistake. Just spaces I didn't want there. So we're going to hit play at this point. Now I can refresh. I can sort this in different orders and add new customers. I obviously can't add new customers because I'm only passing in the credit amount into GP in this particular case. We're going to preview the app. So Aaron Fitz, we have $20,000 credit amount. If I hit the edit, and we can put in a amount, so let's put in 90,000, and we're going to hit submit. So this has gone out. It's updated Aaron Fitz. If I refresh this form, as you can see, it's now saying 90,000 here. If I go into GP at the moment and we bring up Aaron Fitz, we're going to see that the credit amount for this particular customer has now been set to $90,000. So that concludes our demo of the PowerApp. But once again, I would save that app so I don't lose any work. And I would do that by going to, once I've previewed the app, I can close this. And I'm back in the studio, and I can go File, Save As, give it a name. And I would hit Save. Because if you don't save and you just close the tab, you've just lost all the work that you've done, because the Studio is a browser-based cloud application, not running locally on your PC. Let's go over some basic Dynamics GP use cases for PowerApps. Some of the apps you can build are check and update customer balances in GP. This would be the credit amount that we covered earlier in our demo. Check deposits in checkbook and payments associated with that deposit. You can check users logged into GP and trigger a flow to send them a Teams message to log off of GP. You can check quantity of product in a site in GP and show quantity on order and quantity allocated. Of course, there's many more use cases. These are just some of the ones we've implemented in the past. Webinar recap. We reviewed today what are PowerApps, basic PowerApps demo connecting to Excel. We also reviewed PowerApps demo connecting to Dynamics GP data and updating data back into GP, and reviewed some use cases for PowerApps and GP.